Alright, let's get started. Hey everyone, my name's Michael. Hey guys, it's Mike, and today's video I'm going to be talking about what it was like to take classes online at Purdue University. Obviously, a lot of things had to change, and this spring 2020 semester was not like anything else that I've experienced in my many years of being a student. And so I'm going to talk about what exactly happened, talking about my schoolwork, talking about how we took exams. When I was taking classes in quarantine, I originally wanted to make like a day of my life taking classes in quarantine. But when I first tried to make the day in the life video, I don't know, I don't really like making and filming videos around my family, hence why I'm filming this video so late, because most of my family's asleep. And the fact is, I'm in my house and most of my work occurs at the dining room table with my mom, who's also working, so I wasn't about to just whip out my phone and be like, hey guys, I'm doing fucking calc homework. It just would have been weird, so I didn't really end up doing that. Also, nobody cares, but the water went out in our apartment today, so I have a little bit of a headache because I've been drinking a lot of water. So if you see me like fucking guzzling over here, that's why I'm dehydrated. Like, I'm probably gonna go fill this up. All right, so a little bit of intro. We got the notice that we'd be taking classes online. I want to say it was early March for sure. It was the same week right before we left for spring break. I almost want to say it was like a day or two before we actually ended up leaving. And then we were sort of under the impression at that point that, you know, this virus was really only dangerous to elderly populations and that it could sort of be contained. Basically, we were all expecting business as usual. We just wouldn't be going to classes in person or seeing our professors in person. But like, we expected like gyms to be open still. We expected the dining courts to, even if they were like limited, to still be mostly open. We could still go to parties, still have social events, stuff like that. But that obviously didn't end up happening. So literally not even a week after they amended that first email being like, hey, unless y'all really have nowhere to go, get out of here. Unless you really did not have a place to stay, they highly encouraged everyone to get off campus and go back home. So that's what I ended up doing. A couple of my friends stayed back, either because they're international students and they were worried they would have trouble coming back into the country for the fall 2020 semester, or they just wanted to stay on campus, finish the semester, and then go home. So lots of different reasons why people chose to stay and leave, but I'd say like almost everyone left. And the people who did stay on campus described it as sort of being like a ghost town. So anyway, I'll just jump right into my experiences. So one thing to note, all classes at Purdue, we had the option of taking pass-fail. I think given the situation, I think that was a good choice that Purdue made, just because it allowed for flexibility. If you really weren't a fan or worried about like how, you know, taking a class pass-fail would affect your graduation or your grad school admissions chances, you could still take it like for a letter grade. Or if you were really trying to boost your GPA, you could still take it for a letter grade. And then on the flip side, if you really, you know, were struggling this semester because of online learning, you could take your classes pass-fail. And you could even choose by classes, and I'll tell you more about what I did later. But my only complaint about that is that, honestly, I feel like if Purdue just made all classes pass-fail, like forced you to do it all pass-fail, people who are worried about it affecting their grad school chances could, you know, use that as leverage when they're applying and be like, hey, I had no say in this matter, like, don't penalize me for it. And especially because it's such an anomalous semester that even if grad schools already had a policy where they weren't accepting pass-fail courses, you know they're probably going to amend it this next coming admission cycle. So I don't know. From my experience, I saw a ton of my friends who are planning on going to grad school feel pressure to keep their letter grades, even if they knew it was going to bring their GPA down, because they were just so worried about, because we had the option to take class pass-fail, grad schools could then look at us and be like, oh, well, they chose to take it pass-fail, so, you know, we can, I don't know, that's my personal opinion. And I guess the only people who would be affected by that would be people who wanted to improve their GPA. But even then, Purdue also mentioned the fact that like their normal policies regarding academic probation just like didn't apply to this semester. So if like you didn't raise your GPA above the threshold to get off academic probation, you're good. So I took 4 classes this semester, and I'll just sort of talk about what each class did. So I'll first talk about my math class, which is MA 266, differential equations. If y'all are wondering, you probably don't care. But that class meets 3 times a week, just Monday, Wednesday, Friday lecture, good old fashioned, pretty standard. Basically, she just started pre-recording lectures and putting them all online for Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. Like, it was pretty simple. And then we didn't have quizzes, we only had homeworks, which we already turned online in online anyway, so it was basically the same. And then once a week we had written homework that we'd have to turn in a paper, but we just uploaded that, so it was pretty standard. The only difference came to the exams, and we took one midterm in person, but online is just like a glorified homework assignment that had a time limit, basically what it was. And then for the finals, it was the same thing. But yeah, like that class was pretty standard. And then for office hours, She used the website Piazza, which is just like almost like a chat room, and you could post questions and forums, and then people can reply to you, and you can post them anonymously, like me, because I don't want to be judged for asking stupid questions when you're not paying attention to class all year, and then you ask something stupid, and someone's like, did you not learn this? This is literally something we learned in the first week. So I wouldn't feel that like pressure, and so I could just ask the dumb question anonymously, and I won't care. So I thought that was really great. Sorry, I was about to cough. I just really didn't want to for some reason. So Math 266, pretty standard. I think they had a good system going. Should I start rating these? Would that be fun? I'll put it on a 5-star scale. You know what? I'll give Math 266 a 4 out of 5 for online transition, with -1 point simply because there's already another class that I'm going to talk about that I think deserves 5 stars, but honestly it was very solid. 4 is good, you know? The next class I'm going to talk about is my Korean 102 class, which is Green 2. And I love this professor, first of all, and I think she did a great job with the online transition. So this class met 3 times a week, but we had online, like, hybrid assignments that we had to do. It was called Speak Everywhere. If you took a language class, you might know about it, but it was basically just we practice speaking on Tuesdays and Thursdays virtually, and then meet Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So it was like technically a hybrid class, but it was mostly an in-person class just with this as a supplement. But yeah, this class was definitely more interesting because it's a very much a discussion-based class. Like, although we have lectures, it's a much smaller setting, and then it relies on us practicing like with each other, which, you know, makes sense for a language class. Basically, she also pre-recorded her lectures, but instead of dividing it by Monday, Wednesday, Friday, she divided it by units. So she'd be like posting all of chapter 15, and then we'd have 2 weeks to do all of chapter 15. And there'd be lectures for like 15.1, 15.2. It would be like 5 or 6, so they didn't necessarily coincide with days of the week, but they were just pieces of a unit, which was fine. And we could work at our own pace and not have to go work Monday, Wednesday, Friday on that same schedule if we didn't want to, which was nice, but me being the procrastinator I am, I frequently just did all of my homework the day it was due. And then instead of having discussions to replace those, she supplemented them with kind of like a forum where she would post a question and then we'd have to submit our responses. And then sometimes we'd have to respond to a question, and then also respond to our classmates. So that was, I'd say, about as good of a solution as you can get to. And then on top of that, we also had like frequent meetings, like in small groups. I'd say every 2 weeks we had a small group meeting with the professor, and she'd go over lectures, allow us to ask questions, and then we could practice with her and then around other people as well, which was nice. And then she'd also do whole class meetings, a couple, like maybe twice this semester. On top of that, which I thought was super great, she'd do individual meetings like every other week as well. So it was really hard to fall behind or have an excuse to fall behind because she was there to help you, and because you don't want to look dumb in front of her, so you're more inclined to like practice before your individual meeting, you know. So I thought what she did was really great, and I think considering her online, it was a superb transition. We got to be able to practice with the professor, practice with each other, and then I'd say the only major thing that didn't work out was our final project was to do a speech for a campus-wide speech contest, and obviously that got canceled, so we just have to record ourselves and upload it online, which honestly I liked better because up until a week before we were supposed to actually do this, I didn't realize we were supposed to memorize the whole speech. And I don't know about you, have you ever tried to memorize a 2-minute speech for a language you've only spoken for like 6 months? No. And on top of that, I would have had to do this in front of a crowd of people. Do you know how hard it would have been to memorize Korean for 2 minutes straight, not mess up, and I've only been speaking the language for like 6 months. And it's a completely different character system. So it's like, wild. I don't know if I could have done that. So I'm so glad I got the opportunity to just film myself and do it. And the exams were just online and open book and open notes. So it was fine. Like, yeah, it was nothing else to explain about that. For office hours, she literally just did a virtual office hour. Like she'd get on Zoom from like 1 to 2 p.m. on a Friday, and you could hop on the Zoom and then talk to her. So it was like the most literal, like, parallel you could have online to real office hours, which I thought was superb. Back to the main point, I think this class handled it super, super well. 5 stars. Superb. Love this professor. I'm having her again because I'm taking Korean 201, and I couldn't be more excited.
Now for the interesting classes.
My 2 civil engineering core classes that I had to take, the ones that are like my major core classes, I had a lot more interesting stories about. So I'll talk about my dynamics class first. Like, basically, they had a very similar system to my math class. They just pre-record lectures, put them online, and that was it. It was literally, that's all I did. And then for office hours, he didn't have office hours, like, at all. So you just had to email him, and then every time you email him with questions about homework, he'd be like, hey, Michael has a question. Can you TAs answer it? And then he'd CC the TAs on the email and then be like, okay, I'm done. I'm like, dude, I asked you. You're the professor. I asked you for the response. I don't know. It felt so lazy to me. And I understand he's probably busy doing his own things. And maybe he feels like he's not paid enough to answer questions. But like, come on, man. Like, your TAs are probably struggling too. And they're paid a lot less than you. And they're also taking their own classes. Like, have a heart. I asked you. I have the TA's emails. And I emailed them sometimes. But sometimes I just want an answer from the professors. That's what they're for. No bitter feelings at all towards this class. And then his exams. You know, I'm going to talk about my exams for my 2 civil classes after I talk about the classes because they're a little bit more interesting. So that was my dynamics class. I'll give the ratings for these 2 classes after as well. So then my last class I'll talk about that is CE 270, structural mechanics, structures for short, I guess. And this professor, he also uploaded lectures that we just had to watch Monday, Wednesday, Friday. And then on top of that, he added a quiz that was due the same day the lecture was uploaded so you could watch it and then test your comprehension, which I guess kept me on track, so I appreciated that. But the other thing to mention about this class is it was a lab class, so we usually had our 3 lectures a week and then we'd meet for a lab once a week, a 2-hour lab. And obviously you can't do that at home, especially because of the stuff we were doing was like involving applying like hundreds of pounds of force on like steel bars and stuff, and like I don't have like a steel bar here in my house. So what he did is he just filmed himself doing the experiment and then gave us all the data for it. So I mean, I guess that's as good as you can do. The only problem is sometimes he'd forget to upload the video, so I just have to like guess where the data was coming from based on the diagram in the lab manual, so that wasn't ideal sometimes. For CE 270, there were no office hours either. We just had to email our professor, but he would at least respond and do the best he could to help us. Sometimes he'd actually respond too many times. There's a couple moments where I did ask him questions and then he responded multiple times. And then on top of the fact that he would email us frequently, outside of it, I'd get the message that said, getting too much email, unsubscribe. So my professor was spamming us, but I'd honestly rather take that over the other dynamics professor who just was like, so telling us it's not his problem, so whatever. Those classes, those were kind of rockier transitions, but it's fine, you know? If the exams went smoothly and then like if it was just these hiccups in the rest of the class, like I would have been completely fine. But the exams, however, how they handled that whole thing. CE 270. The class has 2 midterms and a final. The first one we took in person. But basically, my CE 270 professor, structures. We had our first exam in person, and the second midterm was gonna be online, and then we had a final. So the second midterm, he originally was gonna try to put on Blackboard, but then he like formatted it wrong. So then he basically said we had like a 2-hour window on Blackboard to get it done. So we would it would open like at 6 p.m. and then we had till 8 p.m. to like do it on scratch paper, take pictures, and then submit it online again. So came 6 p.m. on the day of the midterm. All of us couldn't see anything. And keep in mind, we have a civil engineering group chat for the entire class of 2022. And the group chat started blowing up because everyone was like, oh, God damn it, did he really like, because this professor was known to like have hiccups throughout the entire year. And keep in mind, we had him for a different class the first semester, so this was the second semester we were doing with him. And we're like, God damn it, he really forgot to upload the exam. And then someone found like a little tidbit that he uploaded earlier. I don't know where exactly someone found it, but like basically it was like a note that he accidentally uploaded and just said, man, I hope this works. Well, boy, it didn't work. We were sitting there for half an hour waiting for this exam, and we were emailing him like, hey, the exam's not visible. And then so he had to start like opening the exam individually student by student, which was like a huge liability thing, but like whatever. He gave us extra time, so it was fine. Yeah, and then for the final, he decided to give us a 24-hour window, but as soon as you started the exam, you'd have a 3-hour timer to get it done, which went a lot more smoothly because not everyone was on at the same time, and also now he knew how to like actually work Blackboard and put an exam on it, so it was fine. The final went fine. CE 298, dynamics. That was a whole other story. So the second exam came along. He had it open for 24 hours. And then that was it. It was just open for 24 hours. So you could take your time, take as much time as you want to do it. Open book, open note. Open resource. So I was taking this exam thinking it would be like my normal midterm. It would maybe take an hour or 2. No more than 3. Because like, you know, we're supposed to take these exams in an hour. And maybe it's a little harder, so maybe it'll take me 2. And because I always take my time doing things, and if I have the time to do it, I'll probably take 3 hours. It took me 8 hours to do this exam. I was like having self-esteem issues because I was like, this is supposed to take me 2 hours. Like, this is supposed to take me an hour. Why is it taking me 8? And then I found out everyone else in the class was also having the same issue, that this was just a super difficult exam. And so I submitted that at the end of the day, and that was the only thing I'd done all day, and I was like so brain dead. A few days later, we get an email being like, hey, we have to cancel the second exam because of academic dishonesty, and it's not fair to everyone. So we're gonna redistribute how much the first exam counts for your grade and how much the final counts for your grade. Have fun. And then people started throwing a fit because I'm like, hold up. First of all, we spent so much time taking this exam. Second of all, a lot of people who didn't do well in the first exam were worried that they're gonna fail the course because they were expecting the second exam to boost their grade. Because the first exam counts for so much more of your grade, they realized they couldn't pass. So we started emailing him like crazy. And then he's like, okay, fine. We'll just deal with the cheaters individually. So everyone's like, okay, it's all good. So then some people started getting some ominous emails from our professor being like, hey, we have evidence you engaged in academic dishonesty. How did you cheated? Engineering professors, am I right? But yeah, basically we're sort of thinking in our head like, okay, he's probably like he's seeing a pattern in the exam test, but he can't like actually prove that we cheated. So everyone's like where's this coming from? Like, I don't, what's he gonna do? Like trace our IP addresses and like, you know, find out we like cheated at this specific time or something like that. Long story short, he did. We got an email when he put in the grades for our exams. We usually do a poll when people put exams in because we're nerds about what your grade was, and 80% of the class got a 0. People were talking about like, did anyone else just get a 0 randomly in their grade book? And some of them didn't even receive the first email being like, how did you cheat? And they're like, okay, what the hell? And then we got an email from him later being like, hi. So I collaborated with the website Chegg and traced your IP addresses and found out that many of you guys used Chegg while the exam window was open before you submitted your final exam and copied the solutions. So like, yeah, you're getting a 0. So he basically fucking FBI'd this shit, traced our IP addresses, got Chegg to cough up that information, matched it with Blackboard, and then figured out like who cheated and then figured out who used the exact solutions. Like he spent so much energy figuring out exactly who cheated. And I'm like, holy crap, this was an open resource exam. And like, yes, like you probably shouldn't have used Chegg to do your exam, but like I'm thinking to myself, when I was looking up solutions, you could so easily accidentally click on Chegg and then be incriminated, you know? We were allowed to use the internet. We were allowed to look stuff up, so like, why? And like, he didn't say specifically that Chegg wasn't allowed. I guess it could have been implied, but like, why wouldn't you just say it flat out? You probably would have prevented a lot of people from, you know, getting 0s. Yeah, that became a whole scandal. It blew up on the Purdue subreddit too, because like, what psycho professor tracks IP addresses of their students? Like, if he feels like responding to his students about questions out of his pay grade, since when was becoming an FBI agent a part of that? Like, huh? I don't know. It was so out of what I expected professors to do in terms of cheating. And I'm like, if you're so obsessed with that, you could have like devoted that extra energy into like trying to prevent people from cheating. But the way he like, and I can even show you exactly what he said about the terms of midterm 2 and like how he worded it, it just was so like, he wasn't doing anything to say like, oh, don't cheat. It was like he was trying to get people like, yes, it's fucked up you cheated, yes, it's fucked up you're screwing up the curve for people, but like the professor could have done a lot more. Like, if 80% of the class is failing this exam, and then he predicted our grades afterwards, and like 75% of the class was predicted to fail the class, like that's not what the end goal is supposed to be, you know? Like, yeah, that's my story. I know this was low-key just like a mini story time within this video, but like, I guess it's helpful to know that just don't cheat in college. They take it way more seriously, and second of all, you might have a psycho professor who will literally track your IP address if he has to. So the more you know. But yeah, back to my original conversation. I didn't cheat, so I didn't get a grade. Did I look stuff up online when I was looking for my answers? Yes. Did I use Chegg? No. But if I had like paid for a Chegg subscription and like accidentally clicked on a website, like I'd be dead. It's 1:45 in the morning. It's almost 2 in the morning, and now I'm like losing my train of thought. So bear with me. So yeah, my final reviews for my 2 civil engineering classes that I kind of talked about interchangeably. My civil engineering 270 class, I'm gonna give it a 3 out of 5 because it was a really rocky transition, and yes, he fucked up on the midterm big time, but he was really compassionate, and when you would email him, he'd give like heartfelt responses. Like, he would accommodate individual needs, and like he wanted us to do the best we could, and for that I'm giving him a 3. My dynamics professor was okay in the lectures, however, he was really bad at communicating with us, wouldn't answer our questions directly, and he completely like put us through an emotional roller coaster with midterms and literally turned into an FBI agent. So 1 star. So yeah, those are my reviews. Pros and cons overall. So my pros for online learning: you could work at your own schedule. Obviously some other classes still had to meet like at a specific time and they were like taught live. But for me, none of my classes were like that, so I got to work at my own pace. And even if you do have classes that are like that, if your class was at 8 o'clock, but you usually sleep till 9, you can get up, watch your class, and go back to bed. Where if you're actually at school, you probably have to get up and then you're on campus and then your day started. The second pro, you could watch your lectures at 2 times speed. Like I said, mine are pre-recorded, so my impatient ass could watch my lectures at 2 times speed, especially if I was falling behind and didn't have a lot of time. So that was nice. Pass-fail was a pro for me. I'm not 100% set on grad school, so I wasn't really thinking about it. But I will say, had the pass-fail option not been available, my GPA would have tanked this semester. I took 3 of my classes pass-fail out of 4, which is honestly a lot. And at that point, I almost wish I just took them all 4, because then it looks a little less sus if I just have 4 Ps on my transcript instead of 3 Ps and an A-. Like, does that not sound a little sus to you if you're like a college admissions officer and you're like, what happened here? Why is there just 1 grade? Either way, though, my GPA went up this semester, and had I not had the option, it would have went down a lot, and I would have been in the hole. So, online open book finals. This was definitely great because I felt less pressure to memorize everything and more so just study the concepts that I got tripped up on and then sort of get the bigger picture. And if I missed little things, I could look them up while I was taking my finals. This was tremendously helpful. I didn't feel as much pressure. I wasn't as stressed while I was taking my exams. So that's undeniable pro for me. Cons, time zones. This was definitely something that affected international students like crazy and my West Coast friends, because Purdue's in Eastern time and they offer classes as early as 7:30. And some of those 7:30 classes were live. So some of my friends, my Cali boys, had to get up for a 4:30 lecture. 4:30 in the morning. Like, at that point, I just stay up the night before and go to class and then go to bed, you know? Cheating obsessed profs. I don't think I need to elaborate on this. One of my professors from my class I took abroad last summer, love her, she's amazing, and we've kept in touch with her, and Eva, Mina, and I organized a little Zoom call with her. You've seen them in the vlog, by the way. She's like higher up in the College of Engineering, so she knows a lot of the professors. Like, she deals with admissions for T2M. Basically, like, she was talking about how so many professors were just so obsessed with cheating, like trying to catch cheaters and trying to catch people who are being academically dishonest. And she's like, why don't you just make it so you can't cheat? Like, make exams that you can't cheat on, you know? Like, some classes I know canceled all their exams and just did papers instead. Or like, make an exam that's impossible to game in your favor, you know? And no office hours. Some classes, this was sort of like an afterthought for them. This was definitely an issue for me. For my 2 civil classes, I would go to office hours all the time. But since they didn't have office hours, it was a lot more awkward to like email back my TAs and stuff. So that's definitely a negative. And then I say that the 2 biggest issues with online learning are what I'm going to talk about next. I'm getting so tired, so please bear with me while I struggle through my words. 1, separation of workplace and leisure. So I live my entire life operating by separating the spaces where I relax and sleep from the spaces that I do my work. And this is like psychologically proven too. So if you study on your bed, instead of you like having a cozy place to study or not thinking there's really like a downside to it, if you make it a habit, you can like lessen your quality of sleep, because when you're sleeping, you're in the same place that you work. So part of your brain's like still inclined to be in work mode. And then vice versa, when you're working on your bed, part of your brain's like, oh, this is where I sleep. So part of your brain's in sleep mode. So instead, you're kind of getting worse quality sleep and being less productive. So I never study in my bed. And I would very, very rarely study at my apartment. I would almost all the time find a place on campus and do my work there. That's much harder to do if you're stuck inside. So I was able to manage that by like, you know, having this bedroom where I would relax and like sleep on my bed and then work in the dining room. But like, I also like to change up where I work because it makes me more productive by having new surroundings. And when I would go home, like in the middle of last semester and I had to do homework, I would like find a coffee shop or find a library, but like I can't do that now. So that was definitely a hard part that I had to deal with, being able to stay productive and trying to find that separation when it's really, you're just stuck in an apartment. And then the other con is just motivation in general. So I feel like I don't need to explain this too much, but when you're at home, your life's really static, and also there's not as much holding you accountable. Like being able to go to class, you're forcing yourself to be in an environment where you learn. And especially if you're in a small class, you feel more inclined to pay attention to what you're learning because you might be like called out on it, or you're gonna have to practice it in class. And it's just like the whole environment's a lot more conducive to staying motivated and staying on top of things. Especially because students around you are also trying to stay motivated and stay on top of things. But when you're at home, it's a lot different, obviously, and especially for the classes that just had online lectures but no other like way to kind of keep you on track, it was super easy to fall behind. And I know for several points during this past semester, I was like weeks behind on lectures because I just had let myself go. I just couldn't stay disciplined enough to stay on top of that. And I had to play catch up. Honestly, like by the end of the semester, I was like hanging by a thread. Like I was just able to like get my shit done because I was so close to just being like, screw all this. Like, especially if there's no like physical repercussion to you not doing your homework. Like if you close your laptop, school doesn't exist. Another con I'm gonna talk about that I completely forgot to mention but is definitely valid is like unequal access to internet. Not all students have laptops or even computers in their homes. And while you're at Purdue, there's our computer labs that you can go to. But if you're at home, like I don't know how, and you don't have a computer, like there's literally no way you can do your work. Oh my god, this video is so long. I've been filming for 44 minutes. Oh my god. Thank you guys for watching. This video is probably gonna be very long, so if you've made it this far, great job. I appreciate the support. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment down below anything you want. You can literally leave the fattest hate comment down below if you really want to. I don't care, it still boosts my engagement. And I will see you guys. I'm literally like closing my eyes as I'm filming. I've never been this tired while filming, you guys. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Love y'all. Good night. Okay.